think that already about black women or all women, or you think that like I think that way about white women and don't about black women. So that's why I'm like, whoa, like.
Yeah, I think what you're missing is.
Does that make sense?
And I want to say this in like the least combative way possible.
Sure.
You know, what you're missing is I don't care about you. Okay. Right? Like in that
Probably a little bit less combative way of saying that, but yeah, sure.
In that.
I call it the bitchification of men, where you don't, you know, it's like everybody is, I don't know, just soft.
Yes.
You know, and it's soft.
You know, I think Damon there is 100% correct. However, the topic of this video is Ryan Clark, even though what Damon said there will be coming up over the course of this video. So make sure you guys stick around for the full bit. Now, guys, this right here is a rare Sunday video for me, but then again, though, these Sunday videos will probably be much, much more frequent in the future. And, of course, the reason why is because of the new content that's going to be getting worked on a little bit later on this year. It's going to be getting released a little bit later on this year. You'll start to see bits and pieces of it starting this month. However, that's the only update before we get started in this video. But still, though, at the same time, let's have a conversation about Ryan Clark and all the hypocrisy around this Andrew Schulz discussion. And, by the way, it was quite satisfying seeing somebody call him out on his BS. But let's get to that. So there's been this little back and forth, or I wouldn't even call it really a back and forth. It's just really more or less one person getting upset because somebody told a joke to Shannon Sharpe and to Charlamagne the Fraud. And, of course, that right there being Andrew Schulz, a comedian. Now, guys, I have the same feeling about Andrew Schulz that I have about Bill Burr. I don't really find these guys to be that funny, but I also, at the same time, understand that they are comedians and that comedy is, in fact, very, very much subjective. You find what you find funny. My sense of humor is kind of an odd sense of humor. It's a bit of a mix between what an 8-year-old would find funny, absurdities, and, of course, also dark humor. But still at the same time, though, yeah, comedy is subjective. You find what you find funny. And, of course, to go on top of that, if you want to make fun of certain comedians because they're not funny, that right there is up to you. Also, to go on top of that, the topic of whether a joke actually strikes a nerve and offends you and pisses you off, that's obviously going to be coming up over the course of this video here as well. But let me just go ahead and say this. What Damon said there earlier, which we'll also talk about over the course of this video, is 100% true. We've gotten really, really, really soft as a society. However, it does make me think that really a lot of this, even some of the softness, is in fact fake. And obviously there's an agenda behind it. But still, though, how did we actually get to this? Well, let's listen to what Ryan Clark said on the Pivot podcast about Andrew Schulz, about some jokes about women of color or black women. But speaking of what has been getting spoofed, let us go ahead and get to that. So the two obviously had an episode. They did an hour and 10 minutes, which I'll link the full bit in the description box. And you'll see exactly how fake this man is. This right here, of course, being Ryan Clark. But still, though, like I said, there were certain parts of this that, quite frankly, got spoofed and got pointed out for good reasons that, by the way, also exposed his fakeness. So let us go ahead and dig in. This first bit's roughly about a minute, but let me go ahead and play it.
Andrew Schulz was a nameless gray face.
Sure.
Right? It wasn't, I didn't want to attack you. I didn't want people to come to you and be like, well, Ryan Clark said you're a racist. Like, I would never say that because me, who never actually says, hey, white people are this.
Yeah.
When I step up for black women the way I did, you know what I got? You're a racist. Right?
Yeah, people are saying that. Yeah,
right. And so,
which is unfair too.
And if I, 2020, George Floyd, I'm like, look, man, I get that there's a criminal system, but doing this to any man is not okay.
That's right. Yeah, you brought up the Alton Sterling thing too.
And but when you do that, right, from whether it's conservatives, Republicans, the right, white people in general, you're a racist. When I never, in any fact, ever say anything about my own color being superior to anybody, which is what racism stems from, right? And so I get
something I want to go ahead and point out really quick before we really get to the meat of this video is this: where a lot of the B-roll footage that I took from the Pivot, a lot of the footage that I used is playing in the B-roll. Like you're seeing it right now, but you're listening to my voice give commentary. I want you guys to pay very, very close attention to Andrew Schulz's body language, because it just feels to me like this right here was a failed struggle session. I'll give you guys a brief explanation on what a struggle session is towards the end. Chances are, if you're a historian or if you know what one is, chances are you're probably already thinking about this anyways. But it seems to me like this right here was an attempt to try to shame Andrew Schulz into a certain position. And Andrew, in my opinion, while meek at points in time during this episode, which will be linked in full inside the description box, it seems to me like Andrew didn't fully go for the bait. As in, it looks like he was probably going to buy into this, maybe apologize, maybe pull back, but he never fully bought in or fell for Ryan Clark's trap. Just pay attention to the body language of Andrew Schulz during this entire stuff. But let me go ahead and get back on track with the commentary. No, Ryan, you just whine. You whine and cry. That right there is what you do. And now you're whining and crying over jokes, and you're trying to brand somebody a racist. Now, guys, real quick. There was a 30-second segment that I started out with before it transitioned into Damon Wayans, basically saying that we were getting soft. I want to replay that 30 seconds for you guys really quick because I find it very interesting what he said at the very end. You guys probably picked up on it when you first clicked on this video, but let me play that. But then let me also at the same time play after that what he was saying before this.
What Andrew said to Shannon and what he said to Charlemagne was all fair game, right? If I'm going to speak on something that he did, then now I'm putting myself in a place to be spoken about. I have no problem with that. I didn't find what he said disrespectful, even in cases of disagreeing, right? I also think it's cute that I'm in their group chat in my suits and he don't follow me. Like, that mean I'm...
Do you guys remember the clip that opened the video? Well, what did he say at the very end?
Missing is...
Does that make sense?
And I want to say this in like the least combative way possible.
Sure.
You know, what you're missing is I don't care about you. Okay. Right? Like in that...
Probably a little bit less combative way of saying that, but yeah, sure.
In that...
What Andrew Schulz should have done right then was he should have looked Ryan Clark dead in the eye and just simply asked, then why am I here? If you don't care about me, then why am I here? Then why do you care? Seriously, why do you care? This right here is feminine. Very, very, very feminine. And like I said before, a part of me believes that even this effeminate nature out of Ryan Clark is also, guess what? Somewhat also fake. There was a lot in this conversation. I mean, it's like an hour and 10 minutes long, and I would say that roughly about 20 minutes of it was spent discussing the joke or how offended Ryan Clark was about the fact that Andrew Schulz made a joke about black women. There's also the bit where Andrew Schulz called him out to his face over having women beaters on his platform. We'll get to that here soon. But I want to go back to Damon Wayans for a second, because there is one thing that I will agree with Damon on, and of course it's the whole notion of honesty, being out front, being truthful. And I also find it funny that another effeminate man who obviously buys his clothes in the kids department in department stores is the one who had to ask him about this topic. But let me play this. Obviously, I had to edit some of it out for the purposes of time of this video, but here you go.
With Trump being in office, the PC culture, because now people feel very comfortable doing pretty much anything. Are you okay with that?
I'd rather know
how you feel, what you think.
Feel, yeah, you know, I'd rather say no, you don't have the job, or say no, you got the job,
right?
As opposed to no, black person, we don't want you to work, right? So I think it's, you know, we've lost our way, I think, as a society, and we're so, you know, I call it the ification of men, where you don't, you know, it's like everybody is, I don't know, just soft.
Yes.
You know, and they're soft about it.
Jokes are jokes. Statements are statements. I would rather know outright how somebody feels. It might not be the smartest thing in the world to come out and say something, especially in the, let's just say in the rhetorical field as far as in rhetoric is concerned, but still at the same time, though, jokes are jokes, comedy is comedy. There's always some truth in every single joke, which, by the way, brings us to the next topic, which, of course, is the topic about stereotypes. We'll get back to that here in a second, but the thing is this right here. I find it actually funny that Shannon Sharpe did, in fact, bring up Trump right then, because Shannon Sharpe is about as Trump deranged as anybody out there who works for ESPN. Same thing with Fox Sports 1. As a matter of fact, I want to just go ahead and just say something really, really quick. As much as I rag on ESPN, ESPN does not do copyright claims on me. Number one. Number two, ESPN, when they do their sports coverage, they actually are good, even though obviously they're a bunch of wokesters now. Versus Fox Sports 1, where their pushing of the message is way worse. Of course, they mostly do it through Colin Cowherd and Nick Wright, but the overall coverage itself and the faces that they have aren't exactly, how do I say, bright when it comes to the topic of sports itself. It seems to me like the best minds left that organization. Now, guys, this next bit's about 1 minute and 35 seconds. I had to file it down a little bit because there is a little bit more minutia into it, so I try to get it down to about 1 minute and 15. But let me play this for you guys because I'm going to react to both what Andrew and Ryan is saying, so let me just go ahead and play this.
And like, people are allowed to react however they want to jokes. I think that's like a misconception with comedians, that like, you have to like our jokes. Like, I didn't even think the joke was that good. But it was, yeah, I didn't think it was that good, but it was a joke. And the intention was to make people laugh. And I think the issue I had with what you said was that, like, I felt it was framed as if, like, I was unaware of these things that you were saying. You were like, I want to tell you what, like, black women mean to me. And then you told, like, beautiful stories about, like, you know, your mother and what black women will do anything for their children. And they'll do anything for their husband when they're sick. And I was like, I think my mom and wife are black.
I get the joke.
I
get the joke.
I guess what I'm trying to say
right,
is like,
but the other piece of it too, Andrew, is that white women haven't been under attack in this country for their entire existence, right?
Yeah,
and so it wasn't about the nobility of it for me, right? It was about that in this platform where I have a space, where I have a voice, this is something that has been said. This is something that is being circulated. And if the two black men that were sitting across from you would have addressed it a different way, even if they would have maybe laughed and it felt like a joke.
Your platform, your space right now that you talk about, Ryan, is being used to put Andrew through a bit of a struggle session here. As you guys will see here in a second, it doesn't exactly work out for him very well, but let me talk about Andrew for a second. Andrew's correct. You are allowed to feel however the hell you want to feel over a joke. You're entitled to do so. However, real men, real women take the joke, they look at it, even if they're offended, and they just move on. Or they learn to laugh about it, or they learn to clap back. Now, let me talk about what Ryan was saying just for a very quick second. Okay, now here's the thing. Going back to what I said upon initial reaction. Your platform, your space, okay? Your platform, your space. Don't you think it might be a good idea, seeing how it is that the Pivot Podcast, which of course is a show that is for the most part geared towards men, don't you think you need to be teaching men to be strong and not effeminate? By the way, I find the white nodding for black women all of a sudden to be, and like I said, we'll point it out right here in a second, quite frankly, pretty daggone hypocritical, given your past. There was also another bit where Andrew was talking to one of the guys on the show about stereotypes and how it is that they think stereotypes are low-hanging fruit. However, they're called stereotypes for a reason, because stereotypes typically tend to be a little bit true, and guess what? Comedians have been making fun of stereotypes and been utilizing stereotypes for a very long time. Ryan Clark, you yourself right now at this moment in time are being a stereotype. The emotional black man. By the way, YouTube, I say that with love, not malice, to anybody out there who thinks what I just said was a really, really bad stereotype. I'm here to tell you right now that some stereotypes can actually be good. Ryan Clark, a lot like, say, Jason Williams, by the way, who I've made fun of on this channel plenty of times, has lost his temper at the wrong times and basically began to cry at the wrong time right there on camera. I always think about that time, speaking of Shannon Sharpe, when he got into it with Skip Bayless about the whole, I'm not going to go back fully into it, but of course it was the discussion where Shannon obviously took exception to Skip pointing out the fact that Shannon was jealous that Tom Brady was still playing at 45 years old when in reality there was no jealousy at all, and then Shannon Sharpe completely lost his mind and sounded like a damn woman. I always felt that Shannon was winning the discussion, winning the argument, until he had the quote-unquote.
Today,
What you mean yesterday?
Okay,
All year.
but you're giving him 100%
I
of the
did,
blame?
because they
Well,
asked me the
that's
question.
just, you have no objectivity. It's just straight Brady
Skip,
hate.
Skip.
Wait a minute. This is just straight hate by a guy who's jealous that he is still playing at a high level at 45 when you had to stop at 35.
Skip, that's what you do.
That's the point.
That's what you do. Every time I call something into question, I'm jealous.
No.
Skip, I did
Well,
what I
never
did.
said you were jealous of Baker Mayfield.
Skip, I did what I did. You make it seem like I was a bum. I'm in the effing Hall of Fame.
Okay,
I got 3 Super Bowls.
So what?
So what?
He's way better than you were.
I'm better than
Way
you.
better.
Skip, what I got to see what you do? You take personal shots.
No,
for
I don't take
Skip,
personal
hold on,
shots. You started it.
Time out. You would take a personal shot at me.
I didn't take a
hold on,
personal
time
shot
out.
at you.
Wait a minute.
Exactly. Way too emotional. But now we move to the hypocrisy. The hypocrisy, which is Andrew Schulz calling Ryan Clark out to his face over his hypocrisy. This segment right here is, I'm going to let it run this full duration. It's roughly right around 2 minutes. So let's play that.
Initial reaction is going, like, I'll tell you what my you want to know what my initial reaction is, which I think is kind of unfair, but my initial reaction was when I saw you guys talking about it, and I was like, okay, he wants to protect black women, and this is very important. And then I looked on every one of the episodes that you had to see if there was any guys on here that beat up black women. Mm-hmm. And there were. And I looked to see if you guys addressed it on the pod, and you didn't.
Okay.
Now, I also saw you guys had the episode with DeAndre's mom talking about domestic violence. So I was like, okay, this is good and this is powerful, this is important. But my knee-jerk reaction was, man, I get a whole section that's not even part of an episode. Mm-hmm. And these guys who we know have actually, like, for like a joke, and these guys who have actually like hurt black women and convicted, not allegations, because I don't go off of allegations, I go off of conviction. Everybody can get an allegation, it means nothing. And then these guys, they don't get anything. So in that moment, I was like, this feels like a clout play. It doesn't feel like the highest priority is protecting these women. So that was my initial reaction.
So I'm gonna say this.
Yeah.
We have had people on this show that have been convicted for domestic violence that have pulled it out of the show.
That pulled it out of the show.
That I have asked about it.
Oh, and then they're
that
like, I don't want it on the show.
Yeah, and I do, because people come on our show voluntarily.
Of course.
I do ask those questions in respectful ways. Right? I'm not, hey man, you're a woman beater, but I will say, like, in one of the instances that was pulled, I said, look, you know, you were convicted of something that no man wants attached to his name.
Amen.
And they answered it. We talked to their people. I was like, man, the answer was good, like, and they pulled it out of the show. So we've had that happen. We also had an instance with one of our guests who was talking about sexual assault, and he talked about it in a way that almost said that, okay, how do we blame the women? And I addressed.
You know, Ryan, you would just be better off if you just straight up said, yeah, you know, you got a point there, rather than trying to act like, you know, you guys have addressed it when in reality you really haven't addressed it. And this right here, my friends, is exactly one of the main reasons why it is that so many of us can see right through Ryan Clark, that he really, for the most part, is just fake. Dan Dakich over at Outkick, he reacted and responded to this very same bit. Or he responded not to that bit, but he responded to the comedic bit and this bit right here, both. And he basically came out, and he's been one of the people that's been the most vocal in saying that what's really going on with Ryan Clark is that he believes his own press. Not only does he believe his own press, but he also at the same time believes everything that is good said about him. And of course, to go on top of that, he only listens to positive things that are said to him. Me personally, I don't think that that is what's really going on. I think what the hell is going on is that Ryan Clark has decided to pitch a wagon towards much, much more effeminate audience, or trying to effeminize that audience. I think that is what the hell is really truly going on. But even he cannot fake it, but for so long, because comedians typically tend to be the people who can see right through phonies, because let's be honest, they make a living at making fun of the world and certain people in the world. Now, guys, the biggest reason why I let some of this B-roll footage play is because I want you guys to see Andrew Schulz's body language during this entire process. Because if you really pay attention to this, right, it looks to me like Ryan Clark and the guys at the Pivot Podcast, they try to put him through a struggle session. Now, if you don't know what the hell a struggle session is, let me just give you a very, very quick explanation of what a struggle session is. Back during the Cultural Revolution in China, people that didn't agree, and historians, please, in the comment section, further expand, point out where I'm wrong. I want to hear what you guys have got to say. What would end up happening is that they would do these bits where they would get the one person in the community who may not have fully agreed with what the hell was going on, and they would basically put them up there and they would shout them down, shame them, do all kinds of crazy stuff, and in some cases even kill said individual that they were trying to shame. It was basically public humiliation is what the hell this right here was, and it looks to me like podcasts are a useful tool to do so, because how many times have we seen people go on podcasts, and how many times have we seen people go on those podcasts and all of a sudden fall apart? How many times have we seen guys debate certain issues when in reality we probably are beyond the point of debate and we should get at the action stage of what we're doing, only to then turn right back around and get tripped up? How many times have we seen people who were smarter than others lose a debate to those who, quite frankly, were not as smart as the other person? The other person just happened to be sneakily just a little bit better at framing. It happens all the time. We saw this with the debates between BreadTube and conservative YouTube commentators. We've been watching this stuff ever since the early 2010s. The fact of the matter is that this was a situation where Ryan Clark tried to stress Andrew and tried to shame him and try to browbeat him over his jokes. And the only thing that happened in this process was that Ryan Clark showed you exactly how weak and how fake he really and truly is. Or fake weak. That right there is what I was going for. But you guys tell me in the comment section. I would love to hear what you guys have got to say. Now, guys, there is one thing that I do want to very, very briefly discuss. Won't take but a second, but there's going to be a couple of videos coming out tomorrow. One is going to be on the Austin Metcalf situation. You may have heard about that, the boy who got stabbed in the chest. Yeah, I'm going to be doing a video on that there, and there's probably going to be a follow-up to that one to talk about all the narratives that have come out since then. Now, that video may come out on Tuesday. There's also going to be another video, which is going to be kind of a follow-up, a bit of an addendum to the video that I did recently on the JFK files and also Ben Shapiro, and what's going on at the Daily Wire, because I think I know what's actually really going on there. I kind of touched on it in the previous video, but I want to kind of further expand on that. And those two cases where the teachers were screwing students, yeah, we're probably going to come back to those because there's probably going to be a little bit more to discuss. So make sure you guys stick around for the full week. Please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign up in the comments. I'll see you guys later.